I'm Mary Hahn Beerworth. I'm the Executive Director of Vermont Right to Life. Our office is in Montpelier. I'm the lobbyist for the organization, which is becoming incredibly difficult at the State House as we lose more and more. This election season is going to be extremely important. I'm really just here to chat with you, so if there's just interrupt or whatever. We've always had a strong presence in this community for pro-life. We go all the way back to 1971, Voice of the Unborn. Remember the Bayers, Charlie and Yvonne and Martha, and so many pro-life people that kept the pro-life flag alive here. So we were Voice of the Unborn in 1971, and then in 1974 we became the charter chapter of the Washington, D.C. based National Right to Life Committee. So we started as Voice of the Unborn, but early on pro-lifers recognized that if you can devalue an unborn human life, you can devalue a newborn human life and the elderly at the end of their lives, and that's all coming true. We all knew that. It's just true. So those are the three areas of concern that we lobby in the State House against any further encroachment on the right to life. And of course, the right to life comes from our foundational document, the Declaration of Independence, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So recently, though, we're doing business as Pro-Life Vermont because there's still a tremendous amount of activity in the pro-life community, only it's branched out into pregnancy center resources and prayer at the clinics. So we're still Vermont Right to Life Committee, but we do business as Pro-Life Vermont for some educational outreach programs. As you know, I came up here to speak. We now have, the state of Vermont has amended the Constitution to enshrine abortion in our founding document that has served us well for 200 years, and now the passage of it, which was, we really got shellacked. I mean, I did not expect to win by a lot or lose by a little, but did not expect to get just almost 23% of the vote. But a massive media campaign led by the state's largest provider of abortions, Planned Parenthood. They have an iron grip on the State House, and they were able to take our concerns and run advertising that framed the entire debate as saving a woman's life. Now, Right to Lifers have always made an exception to save the life of the mother in those rare instances where the mother's life is truly in danger. But they had the money to saturate the airwaves. Dobbs had overturned Roe v. Wade. People didn't have any understanding that abortion was legal throughout pregnancy already here in Vermont, that they gave in to the frenzy, and they turned out to really vote heavily in favor of really the worst piece of constitutional language anyone's ever seen. Constitutional scholars are like, what is this? What does it even mean? Well, we're going to find out what it means. So far, everything Planned Parenthood has wanted, they've gotten through the legislature. And with that threat of going to court under our new constitutional amendment. But they're running into a snag right now. Planned Parenthood is running an $8 million deficit. An $8 million deficit. Now, as I said when I came up here under Article 22, your cancer treatments are not your right to have cancer treatments are not a constitutional right. But your right to anything that concerns personal reproductive autonomy is. So will the legislature be forced to fund and make up that deficit? And why are they $8 million in debt? Why? We give them already 1.5 million is a guarantee for Planned Parenthood of Vermont. So it's a tri-state Planned Parenthood, Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire. Maine and New Hampshire have successfully cut their funding, okay? So they're coming to Vermont to make up the deficit, as if we don't give enough taxpayer dollars out already. So, and we've looked at their 990s, and you can't see much, you can't see everything when you take an organization's 990, but obviously they are overspending on lobbying and overspending on new computer programs and outreach and other things that could be trimmed back. But now they're going to come to us, the taxpayers, and demand They've already put out their campaign their campaign questionnaire for candidates. And in that questionnaire, they are telling them, every candidate that wants their endorsement, they better be on board for making up the deficit to Planned Parenthood. So that's what's coming up. They already passed broad sweeping legislation in the last 2 years, reaching out, two pieces of legislation reaching out of the state of Vermont into states that have bans on abortion or have parental involvement laws or have restrictions on late-term abortion. And basically they've set it up, and this is not just abortion, it is for the transgender, they call it care. So let's say you're living in a state that has said no minors are going to make transition therapies without parental permission, but they can come to Vermont and get treatment. And our providers are immune from lawsuits, okay? It's just hugely broad. And then even worse was Act 15, which again expands Planned Parenthood's business by undermining laws in other states, especially neighboring states, and had language in there to shut down the pregnancy centers. So it's supposed to be all about choice. So for pro-lifers, spring up 10 pregnancy centers that help women without any taxpayer dollars. They raise the money in their own communities and provide pregnancy resources, support, parenting classes, and they even support way beyond birth. And they have counseling for couples, they have anger management classes, they do everything. Costs the state of Vermont nothing. And the law, under this law, Act 15 now, the Attorney General of the state of Vermont has the sole right to say that they're using deceptive language. Okay? Well, so what does that mean? Not defined. Charity Clark, our Attorney General, did a Facebook video when she was running for office, and she said, vote for me and I guarantee I'll use the law to shut those clinics down. So this is one of the reasons that Vermont Right to Life is essential to be in the State House, listening to these testimonies, okay? So we got a hold of Alliance Defending Freedom, we got the pregnancy center executive directors all together, and we helped to file the lawsuit. But we were able to provide the lawyers with all the testimony that damages their case, including that videotape of the Charity Clark saying she would shut them down. So we've already been to court, and Federal District Court William Sessions had a hearing on a move by the state to dismiss the case, and we prevailed. The case is going forward. The state was obnoxious. Our folks from Alliance Defending Freedom were wonderful, and he granted that the case goes forward. We're in the discovery stage now. So I believe we will prevail because it's free speech. So what is my interpretation of reproductive freedom is different than Charity Clark, our Attorney General. So and he was very clear on this, that the pregnancy centers had a case, and the fine, if Charity Clark found that you were using deceptive speech, is $10,000 per violation. So that would shut that's why I'm saying it shuts it down. It doesn't directly shut them down, but in the end it would be inevitable, because they're never going to have $10,000 for that. So is that pretty clear? You guys, your closest pregnancy center is in Lyndonville, Futures. Yeah, they have their dinner coming up. Yeah. So that's, the good news is this, and the case is joined by National Institute of Family and Life Advocates. And again, we provided the resources. This is why we transcribe. So when the lawyers come to Vermont and they want to, we say, can you help us here? Then we can provide, and it saves them time transcribing and all that money to just get the documents from us. So we did have a decline in abortions in 2021. Despite the whole fervor over the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which was the following year. So we do believe they're going to go up, mostly because of the availability of the abortion pills. And does everybody know what the chemical cocktail for abortion pills is? The mifepristone, misoprostol. Yeah. So So that people get confused, even our best and brightest get confused, because it's not Plan B. Plan B is something that women take 72 hours after unprotected sex, and basically it doesn't work. But this, you have to be at least 6 to 7 weeks pregnant, and you take first round of pills, and that starves the umbilical cord away from the baby, and then you have to take another round of pills that will expel the baby. And what's happening is, and of course Planned Parenthood pushed for all of this, but there's a way to get these pills off market. So you don't have to go to Planned Parenthood. You can actually order the drugs from Amazon. And it's very dangerous to do so. If you are further along than you think, and many women are often further along than they guess, okay? You very typically, especially for a teenager, you are 2 to 3 months pregnant before you really realize it. If you take those drugs too far along, you could die. If the little embryo is lodged in the fallopian tube and you take those pills, you could die. You have to have an ultrasound to establish that your pregnancy is in utero and how far along you are. Well, these girls are just going out and getting the pills. So it's very dangerous. But it's causing an increase in unprotected sex, just planning to fall back on the pills. And that is probably part of why Planned Parenthood has running some deficit, because responsibly they would do both of those things, have the ultrasound and make sure that the pregnancy is in utero. And so they're charging $400 to get the pills, where you can get them on Amazon for about $40. So we were able to point out, and it was fun, because they pushed out this legislation, at the ones I showed you, Act 15 and Act 14, and they wanted to expand abortion access on college campuses and make sure that on the college campus there were abortion services. Of course, this is to the delight of Planned Parenthood, because they would open a clinic right there. So we came in and testified and said, oh no, sorry, under Article 22, you can't favor abortion over childbirth anymore. Sorry. It's personal reproductive autonomy. So if you're going to have abortion services on campus, you also need to have parenting and childbirth and even daycare on your campuses. So they had smoke coming out of their ears, but they did have to change the language. And then of course we were pushing, now that abortion is legal, right? We don't have to worry that it could cause problems with our constitutional right to have an abortion. We wanted to put in their faces, why can't we protect those who are carrying a baby to term, who want their baby, and but someone else causes their baby to be killed. So a drunk driver, an abusive boyfriend kicking you in the stomach, stabbing, shooting. Most states make that a crime. It's your baby, and it is a crime to end that pregnancy. But Vermont has never taken it up, and they won't. We're going to keep pushing it. I don't know if you remember Patricia Blair with her twins, and I think that I always bring this up. 217 plants and animals have legal protection under Vermont law, but we can't seem to get one piece of legislation passed to protect an unborn child. So this was the accident caused by an impaired driver. She had 2 twins, Patricia Blair. She was carrying them and loved them and couldn't wait to have them. And the car smashed right into hers, the driver, into her stomach, and killed the babies by the time they got to the hospital. And when she woke up the next morning, the headline read, in the paper in Bennington and on WCX News, no fatalities as a result of the crash. Oh, no fatalities as a result of the crash, because we can't call those babies right there human beings. Jeez. All because of abortion. When this happened, it was 2009, so they just turned 15 years old this year. They would have been 15 years old, and their mother will never stop fighting. Mm-hmm. We have a lobby day, so we made it all about this. So now what's your excuse? This woman had a choice to carry her babies to term. Someone else took it away from her. So why can't we, like 38 other states, pass this legislation? And we'll be bringing it back up. We'll bring it back up every single year. And I mean, she's not the only one who's lost babies as a result of not, and having no recognition that she lost, what she lost. She and her husband lost a baby a full year before this crash. And the baby, Shannon, was born, and through the error of the hospital, she was unable to live. They held her for 19 hours. Her lungs were deprived of oxygen to the point that she could not make it. So they thought these 2 babies were God's blessing to make up for Shannon. So they buried 3 babies in like a year and a half or something like that. And so Vermont Right to Life was the only lobby group helping them. They went to Planned Parenthood, who said absolutely not, and they went to our Governor's Commission on Women, and they rejected this woman's plea for recognition for her babies. So very important, violence is up against pregnant women in most American cities. There's a lot of angry men who, when the woman says, I'm carrying this baby to term, he says, no, you're getting an abortion. And she says, no, I'm not. And then a fight ensues and deaths result. Way back in 1985, an unmarried couple, she was 6 months pregnant in Barre, Vermont, and he kicked her in the stomach till the baby died. Medical examiner said the death is the result of blunt trauma to the head of this little girl. And they went to the courts and they said, our hands are tied. I think I have another. Yeah. Our hands are tied because the legislature needs to act in this arena, okay? So, and then there was another case of Oliver versus State of Vermont. I believe she was 9 months pregnant, drunk driver, hit them on the road. And again, they went to the Supreme Court, and again, they were told the legislature needs to act in this area. So, Supreme Court justices concluded that task must be accomplished by the legislature, because nothing in our several hundred-year-old document addresses the humanity of the unborn. And that's because once upon a time, people didn't realize the unborn baby was alive from the moment of conception. They believed that a baby came alive in the womb when the mother could feel the baby kicking. They called it quickening. And so they believed in God, and they believed basically you were carrying a lump of clay, and God breathed a soul and life into that baby at one point in pregnancy. And so there was nothing in our Constitution to protect unborn life. So the Planned Parenthood's always said, well, it'll affect a woman's right to an abortion. Well, it can't affect it now. So what is their excuse? So we'll be pushing on that. And yeah, we fought for 12 years, 13 years to prevent physician-assisted suicide here in Vermont, and we were successful year after year. We worked with the disability community and the medical community, but under Peter Shumlin, by just 2 votes in the Senate, the bill passed. And they've come back every year to take out more and more of the safeguards they said they wanted. So be very, very careful with your loved ones. There's pressure from the medical community to think about taking these drugs. A very famous reporter just died, and in his testimony to the Channel 3 and Vermont Digger and 7 Days, he said, I wanted to save the taxpayers' money. So we knew this was going to happen. We're not going to get health care, and we're going to be made to feel that it's time to die and get out of the way. So look out for your loved ones. This is very, very serious. And now, in this last legislative session, they passed a law that said anyone in the world can come to Vermont and get the lethal dose.
Wow.
And they're coming. They have to make several trips. And in some of the articles about, I mean, this is a chemical cocktail of drugs that burns as it goes down. People are taking between 8 and 20 hours to die. We don't know what's happening as organs are shutting down. So I don't know why this is being so glamorized, but they're coming here, and one woman said, I just hope I live long enough to be able to get to Vermont to take the lethal dose. It's just beyond, I don't get it. And you know, as if there aren't ways to take your own life, but we're celebrating and glamorizing suicide. And sadly, if you read the obituaries of the ones who make a big deal about it, they've gathered their grandchildren around their bedside, and they're drinking this lethal dose, sending what kind of a signal to the next generation that when life is tough, you just get going. My personal opinion is they will keep taking out the safeguards and pushing and expanding until even a depressed teenager is assisted in a suicide. Canada is way down this road, way far down this road. It's really euthanasia in Canada. This is how they advertise the beauty of death with dignity, is it gives you those moments for last intentional connections. They're saying their calls have tripled, website traffic has tripled, videos are viewed. Patient Choices Vermont is pretty much at every death, okay? They work you through the channels. We're still basically dealing with 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 doctors now who are engaging in the practice of dispensing these lethal doses. And they make sure that people come to them and that someone is there now. And then they tell how beautiful it was afterward.
Empowering women begins with giving them real choice and the support they need when they need it. Economic support, emotional support, real options for life's tough decisions. Women are strong enough, smart enough, and capable enough to have a baby while still being happy and successful at work, school, and life. That's why pro-life means loving the little ones, the older ones, the vulnerable ones, and everyone. Empower women so they can have a choice. Paid for by Pro-Life Vermont.
See, when we do something public like that, we're going to use Pro-Life Vermont. So on the anniversary of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we are now celebrating birthdays. So we had Planned Parenthood in the State House celebrating abortion. Who loves abortion was their rally cry. And so now we're loving birthdays, and everyone's always welcome to come. We're getting better at this. We had our second one this past June, and we keep getting a little drizzly rain, but we had a pro-life ice cream company come, Vermont Pro-Life Ice Cream Company, and they served these ice cream cones to the kids that were this big. And we had cake, and we had hot dogs, and we had music, and it's really a nice way to honor that Roe v. Wade is gone, and we should be celebrating birthdays and supporting life and not rejoicing over something as gruesome. Who would have ever thought 30 years ago that we would be celebrating abortion?
Yes.
It was always like a tragedy, right? So it's puzzling how. Now, and this gal is really interesting. At some point, we should get her on your show. Jean Marie Davis is the executive director of Branches Pregnancy Center in Brattleboro. And she got here from California as she ran away from the pimps and sex traffickers who were trapping her all over the country. She landed in the hands of a pregnancy center in New Hampshire. They got her out of, she was in danger of her life. They were trying to kill her, her pimps. She had betrayed her pimps by refusing to kill somebody, basically. And so she ran for her life, came to New Hampshire, landed in the hands of this pregnancy center who got her on her feet and got her to, converted her to Christianity. And she was pregnant at the time. And she said, I don't want a baby. I don't want anything to happen to a child like has happened to me in my life. And it turned out she was carrying a boy, so she started to think, well, maybe she could carry a boy. And then eventually they introduced her to the Bible. And she is the rockin' and rollingest, most fabulous, born-again Christian I've ever seen in my life. And she came down to the State House and let them have it. Because you know they're trying to legalize prostitution, right? You're aware of that? So she's going to put a stop. She single-handedly will put a stop to that. And her little boy is 10 years old now, and he goes everywhere with her, and she's so glad he was born. And now when the job opening came up in Brattleboro, she applied for it, and she got it. And this girl is making waves. She, at her dinner, the fundraising dinner, had a table paid for by the hospital, local hospital, a table paid for by the local police, and she got a grant from Ben and Jerry's. She's just marching right in and telling the truth. So that's what I have, but I didn't take one of my flyers up here. I'm just going to go get one. This is our new project for this fall. So I called Monsignor McDermott before he became the new bishop of the Diocese of Burlington, and I asked him what he thought if we did a pro-life flyer to be inserted in bulletins across the state for Respect Life Month. I wanted to get his permission first, and we are working with all the churches on this. So then we sat down. He was very enthusiastic. He said, absolutely. He said, I want to give final approval, but please do this. So we sat down with some advertising executives who happen to be pro-life, their daughter, and a team. Michelle was there, and my sister, and a few others. And we started talking about things. And what we found out from the young people is that we've really lost them. Now, I know Planned Parenthood is in the schools, but they are really having an influence on our youngest kids. Kids are saying, I don't ever want to have children, I want to be sterilized. When we say, this young girl who's pro-life said, when we say life of the mother, that they interpret as their life. They want to travel, they want to do this, they want to do that, and a baby looks like hard work. And that baby will keep them from having fun. So we were like, okay, now we need to do this project more than ever. So she did think, and it was more than just her opinion, that showing siblings might be helpful, because we all loved how do you get by in life without your siblings? So that's why the cover is looking like a happy family. We have a quiz that teaches them some things they probably never knew about fetal development and who does abortions and kind of the lies that we tried to unpack some of the lies they've been told. And then we have a nice map of where all the pregnancy resource centers are. And around here are quotes from different ones who've used the pregnancy center resources. And then we came up with an idea of really trying to engage kids in an essay contest. So the essay contest is write an essay, win prizes. The topic is the value of a single human life. We define that as think of a person in your life whose unique qualities you have come to appreciate, and then write an essay about why you are glad that person was born. And so we gave them some ideas, coach, teacher, friend, brother. It's open to all between 6th and 12th grade. So we're trying to get those young middle school kids engaged. And so the prizes are $500 for the first place, $300 for second, $200 for third. And any church, institution, homeschool, Catholic school, Christian school that submits more than 5 entries will be put in a drawing for $1,000 to benefit their institution. So I am hoping tonight that you will take some of these, and wherever, if the church here would like somewhere, I've got a whole box. I ordered 25,000. One is a little more appealing to the Catholics. Oh, and by the way, the Vermont Catholic Community Foundation awarded us a grant of $5,000 to produce the Catholic flyer. And then Vermont Right to Life's Educational Trust is the one. The only difference really is that there's a quote from St. Pope John Paul on the Catholic one, and 2 quotes from the Grahams, Billy Graham and Franklin Graham. So I could use help, I will be honest. Trying to get these flyers around the state is difficult. We spent all last week, we'll be spending all of this week trying to package them up and make sure. You'll see an email pretty soon, and if you're not on our email list, please put it on that yellow lined paper back there. And we'll send them out to any school that wants them. The idea is a gentle lift that pushes back on abortion, that starts to make people really think about who they love in their lives. Sort of it's a wonderful life kind of thing, like what if they had never been born, you know? So I'll take any questions you have. I don't have much else, but please engage. So the deadline on this contest is November 18th. So plenty of time for people. It's 300 to 500 words. And I want to see children really pondering what it means that they're alive, you know? And let's get this really personal to them. So one of the things we have in our letter to the pastors and priests is parents and grandparents are so important. I know everybody says only gray hair people are in the churches, but that you're the ones with the experience and the knowledge to start planting the seeds. And sometimes that's a tougher job for parents than it is for grandparents, right? I mean, we spoil them enough. We ought to be able to say, here, you're going to read this. And it's harder for parents to go against the culture and their kids are in school and, you know, it's tough. So I'm hoping you'll help us. And I'll take any questions. And if you don't see them in your church, call me. We're putting some heavy pressure on that it's time. So,
Well, that was good.
yeah. You don't have any questions about the legislature? Please, everybody here, please vote. It's really a nightmare in the State House.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
We still have pro-life representatives here in Owings County.
Yeah, and let me just talk about that for just a second. So we just put out we usually get actively involved at election time, but this is not our time right now. They have dominated the discussion. It's about life of the mother, and they are winning on that. So our message to everyone is, you know, we're not going to press these guys who have stood really bravely and strongly in place. Newport's had some great legislators and senators, but this is not our time. This is about economics, taxes, all the things, and please keep in mind that a woman who cannot afford to have a baby, even though she wants to, it needs to be about the economy so that she can take that deep breath and can think about going to the pregnancy center and can think about bringing her baby into the world. Right now, I mean, they've really destroyed the economic structure of this state. So I hope when you hear someone talking about reining in property taxes, bringing down expenses, curing inflation, bringing things back in line, think about that woman that needs that to happen so she can have her baby. To me, that's pro-life, is to make it possible. And we need to be there constantly keeping a presence in our own communities so that the issue is thought about twice before you just go to Planned Parenthood and have an abortion. So our job is to go out there, be vocal. In this chapter, I'd love to see revive. It's our job to be vocal in the community, to cause that woman to think twice. And most women, I'm going to tell you, most of them really secretly want to have that baby. But if everyone's telling her, just get rid of it, the boyfriend doesn't want it, and you can't afford it, then are you making a choice, or are you pushed into making a decision you have to live with forever? So we have a big job to do, and I thank you for coming out and still being interested in getting it done.
Which president you recommend we vote for?
Which president?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thanks a lot. You want me to walk right into him?
Well, I kind of want to. We're in a tough position to vote for.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So which one do you vote?
Well, I would suggest you do what your heart tells you. Pope Francis said, choose the lesser of two evils. And I have to tell you, it's not going to matter in Vermont. I mean, there are states where it's really close. And I would, myself personally, I'm not speaking for Right to Life or anything, I would 100 times vote for Donald Trump before
Yes.
Kamala Harris. I mean, her whole campaign is abortion.
Yeah.
And so she's ruled me out. I mean, I would have preferred two entirely different candidates, but we got this. And I mean, Trump did a lot of work for pro-life, and he's not saying, and that's what you're going to see from your local candidates right now. They're not going to jump in saying, you know, I'm pro-life, I want to ban all abortions. Not possible. They have sworn to uphold the Constitution. What's in our Constitution? They have to. They have to uphold it. So it's no sense pinning them on it. Think about the woman who needs a good economy. And so I think that Donald Trump could bring us a better economy. And I think that's the pro-life thing right now. And that's just my personal opinion. So we had an excellent candidate on the radio down in Colchester, WVMT. We have a great former legislator who really can ask fair and honest questions. And guess what all the phone calls were? It was all abortion. Because the Democrats don't have anything else. So this was a Republican candidate, and they kept pestering him, calling back on abortion. And it's like, oh, why don't we want to talk about property taxes? Why don't we want to talk about the economy? So the lines are getting very divided and very clear. So we do have one Democrat we're supporting for re-election in Lyndonville, if anybody lives from far away. He's our lone guy right now. But when we worked to pass parental notification in 2001, okay, now they're making us look like we want to ban all abortions. I've been 28 years at this job. We put forward a parental involvement law before a minor girl has an abortion. We had 33 Democrats support the 55 Republicans who voted yes. And systematically, they got all taken out of office. You are not allowed to vote a certain way. And that's just on notifying a parent. The best thing about notifying a parent is the first question mom and dad ask is, who's the father of this baby? Now, if it's a 45-year-old guy, he's going to jail. If he can convince her, if he can shuffle her off to Planned Parenthood and no one's the wiser, then he continues to molest young girls. Mm-hmm. So that was brought up by a woman who was molested by, she was born as a result of the molestation of her sister by her uncle. When the pregnancy made it clear abortion wasn't legal, then the parents moved in to stop what was happening. So all those reasonable arguments got us nowhere. So we passed it in the House, and then the Senate refused to take it up. And then they went back and they took all those Democrats out of office themselves. They gave them all a primary. So the lay of the land is very difficult in the State House, but I'm going in, square my shoulders, put a big smile on my face, because we're right and we win in the end. So I'm confident of that. Any questions? So your Planned Parenthood closed, right? Yeah? Good. So that's good. They've retreated in a way because now they're in the schools. So keep an eye on your school systems. Yeah. So feeder program. They passed in 2 years ago, so 22. They passed that bowls of condoms would be readily available in the 6th to 7th grade through high school. And Planned Parenthood provides those. So very much working in tandem with school nurses. Not all of them, but most of them. All right, everybody knows I can't shut up and not stop talking, so I'm just going to make myself stop, unless you have any questions. It's getting dark, and I'll still be here talking, and you'll make me stop.
We love hearing from you.
Well, thank you for coming out.